So welcome to YWL Summit 2021. I don't believe it, but yeah, it's here. This is the third edition. In 2019, I started this program to give hope and inspire that motivation to take action, irrespective of what curveball that life throws at you. And it's called You Work Love after the three favorite things of mine. It's personal development representing you. Work, we can't separate our lives from work. And so when people say work-life balance, I'm like, yeah, it's work and life. Sometimes I wonder if there's any separation. But then also love, because we are relational beings, and once that's taken away from us, we don't function as properly anymore. So that's what You Work Love is about. And this is the third time we're running it. So it's the foundation for You Work Love is actually it's situated on the Akan proverb that says, Obi asem safwa to mibie obi pono. And thank you to my cousin, Dr. Esther Naneni Maria Kington, who wrote this out nicely in Twi for me. She has a PhD in Twi, can you believe that? But really, all the proverb means is that it says in English that someone's story may be that key that unlocks the door for another. And for me, this is critical because it just means that you don't have to, it's not just your experience, but that you can get insights from other people's experience, and based on what they share and how they navigated anything they've gone through, you can also pick those insights so that in the event that you're confronted with something similar or something the same, you have a bit of leverage. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So that's what You Work Love is all about. I call them branch out stories because, and I say all of us have one branch out story or the other. You realize that if you scan through your life, there's been one moment in your life where life threw you that curveball, no matter how small or how big, but you came to that point where you needed to take a decision to branch out into an option that makes the situation better, or that makes you able to contend or live with whatever it is that life threw at you. So that's the foundation on which You Work Love is based. Before we go on, I want to send a big shout out to all the people who've supported so far. In 2019, and sorry, I have it 2020 here. In 2019, we had James Autry share the story on healing and forgiveness. We had Mia Mankra share with us managing a challenging boss. Alexa Siedu walked us through choosing a life partner. And then Kojo Adaimensa walked in and surprised me. That was a live session. We had it at Holiday Inn. He walked into my surprise, and I was so thankful. Jifa was there for support as well. But then last year, Corona happened, and we had it online, and these amazing people came and supported, shared their branch out stories. Kwabna Ohime, Kojo Adaimensa, Kofi Finn, Sikachum, Pelenkoma Obin, Taka Awori, Catherine Engman, Jifa, and Eugenia. And then we had a panel session on relationships and conflict in marriage. And my husband, Eko, my friend, Susie, my boyfriend's wife, Irene Siedu, and my boss and friend, Mia Makra, were on that panel to share. And I just want to say thank you to all of them for walking the journey with me. On that note, I want to declare, and please, I want everybody on the call to imagine a big bowl. So we're going to cut the sword. So, and imagine the drum roll, the music in your head. You know that they're going to banana. So on that note, I declare You Work Love Summit 2021 duly opened or duly launched. We're going to have 7 amazing sessions, 7 sessions where people share their life's experiences and the insights that they glean from those experiences. You have the opportunity to ask them questions and give them feedback so that you can learn. I want to acknowledge these friends of mine who are coming on the journey this year with me. Tomorrow you'll hear the beautiful and amazing story of Stefan. If you haven't registered for Stefan's session, I encourage you to, before the day ends today. Stefan will share his story through divorce when he wasn't expecting it, and the loss of his son as he was going through his divorce. And then on Tuesday, you hear Rosamond's story on lies that we believe, how words from childhood affect the choices we make as adults. Then you hear Esther speak on making choices in spite of life's experiences when you were a child. Then you listen to Micah as she shares her journey through rejection as a child. You need to get ready to listen to all of these people. Maximum of an hour session, and you will be blessed. Then I have Crystal. Crystal is my mate from secondary school in Nigeria. And Crystal ticks all the boxes of a very good girl. Crystal, I said it. And she shares her journey making jollof when life hands you tomatoes. And Crystal was blessed with a child, an amputee child, and she'll walk you through the journey of how she's navigated that choice and some of the choices she's had to make, and the support and blessings she has become to a lot of homes because of the unexpected gifts that she received. And then my boyfriend and best friend, Fuad shares his journey dealing with an unusual curveball from life, a condition that he didn't even know existed until he was diagnosed. You don't want to miss Fuad's session. And Fuad is a beautiful storyteller. He doesn't want me to say this, but I have said it, Fuad, and I know you're on the call. So please register for Fuad's session as well if you haven't. My friend Stefan says it nicely. There are some choices we make. There are some choices other people make for us, but then there are also choices that life makes for us, and you need to be equipped to deal with any of these choices. So make a date with the speakers, and I guarantee you will learn a thing or two. Before I go into my session today, I also want to take a pause and acknowledge the silent soldiers who helped me through this process, those who helped me build the website, those who say, Doreen, we'll do the social media post for you, we'll spread the message for you. To my friends who call me and encourage me, I just want to say thank you for being there. To my family members, my children, Nana and Ife, thank you so much. I've yearned to be a better person because of the gifts of you in my life. And then to my husband, who's been to every YWL session. I don't want to say he didn't have a choice, but he's journeyed this life with me. He's grown with me. I tend to be, he calls me a certified workaholic. I can just go and just keep going. Thank you, Eko, for having your eye on the ball of our marriage and drawing me back in when I seem to just go on and work all the way through. So thank you, everybody. And to my friends and family on the call, thank you for spending time this afternoon to listen to me as I talk about leading diversity in the home. A short disclaimer before we go on. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a psychiatrist. Another disclaimer I want to put out there. The things I share on the call today, I'm also a student in those areas. I'm a student of life. At every stage of motherhood, I learned something new. And so the things I share with you today, the discussion, I'm actually also learning in those areas. So call me work in progress, but I want to draw your awareness and consciousness to those areas so that we can grow together. So that disclaimer put out there, welcome to Leading Diversity in the Home. Ta-da! Okay, all right, so today will be a success if at the end of today's session, you actually go home now and take a look at the people in your family and realize, okay, we may be different, but we've been put together for a reason and we can make it work. Often we learn these things at work during different leadership sessions and development programs. But today I just want to draw some consciousness to all of us on the call so that we can begin to have those conversations that change lives right in our own homes. So if you go home after today's session, if you turn off your laptop and you begin to now listen differently to your children, or you begin to hear something your spouse has been saying, or a friend has been saying that you hear differently for the first time, just drop me an email or text and say, yeah, it worked. That's all we're seeking to do today, is to create awareness that starts conversations on deep diversity in the home. So let me introduce myself, because that's diversity, right? So my name is Dorene Buffo. My maiden name, Doreen Angel, and you know, you fall in love, you meet a gentleman, you fall in love as women, you quickly change your name, you start a family together. But I'm a woman, I'm a brown-skinned woman, an African girl. I call myself a Ghanaian. I was raised in northern Nigeria by Ghanaian parents. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, a sister, and I want to think of myself as a cool girlfriend. But then there's more to me. I'm left-handed. And if you want to know how challenging that can be. Try taking out the scissors in your kitchen and try using your left hand to cut through anything. So I'm a left-handed woman in a right-handed world. And that leads me to another fun fact about me. Look, I can't dance to save my life. In fact, when I was 9, my mom observed me dance and it was so bad. To help me manage it, she says, you know, though, left-handed people can't dance. And I believed her until I went to boarding school and I realized that it wasn't actually true. So if you've ever seen me dance anywhere, I apologize for the inconvenience I put you through, but that's one thing about me as well, I'm left-handed. In terms of work, I see that I work with leaders at different stages in their journey of life so that they can achieve any kind of results they're working on. And how I help them do that is to focus on the culture, how we do things. We want to create that culture where people thrive because people are different. And I do that using the following tools. I'm a storyteller by nature. My brother and I joke about it. My brother says sometimes when I tell a story of something that happened when he was there, he looks at me and he says, hey, all of that happened. How did I miss that? So I'm a storyteller. I'm a coach as well. I'm a trainer. I mentor and I speak. And I do all of this geared towards the same objective, to create a culture where people thrive. And I talk about leaders because for me, a leader is not one with a title. For me, a leader is one who observes that there's something needs to be done about it. There's a challenge that can be fixed and takes action or initiative to do it. In transition, take up mother. So if I look at my journey of motherhood, when my kids were born, that was one leadership journey for me. When they transitioned to school, a different skill set as a mother had to emerge. When they moved from primary school through to secondary school, a different kind of motherhood. As they leave, my son is no more a teenager and my daughter is just in her last year of being a teenager. And so as they leave that stage as well, another kind of leadership as a mother needs to emerge. And so there are different transition stages we go through irrespective of the roles that we play. Now, if you take all of these things that I have said, then that's actually diversity. That's everything that makes me unique. And that's the definition of diversity I want us to work with today, as simple as it is. It's everything that makes you and I unique. So think of yourself as well and think of the people in your space and look at them and you see what makes them unique, and that's diversity. So if you go quickly in your own space, your team at work, the family you've been blessed with, and by family, I just don't mean the biological gifts that you got, but also the people that you have created a safe space for to thrive at home. That would be family as well. And look at how the differences we have, male, female, different skin tones, different inclinations, different gift sets, and all of that. That's diversity right there. Now, in the spirit of storytelling, and because that's one of the gifts I have, I want to tell you a story. And this is a real life story. One that happened between a brother and his sister at the brother's 40th birthday, which the sister had thrown for him. Brother had a few friends, and sister is a year younger than the brother. So at a point through the party, brother walks the sister and he says, thank you. All of these years, still you make it impossible to hate you. And sister goes, hate me? Who can hate me? I'm very lovable. And then he said, I know, but as a child, I wanted so desperately to hate you. You were the perfect child. I wasn't. You did everything right. You kept things where they needed to be kept. You sat when our parents said, sit. You did things just the way they wanted. I wasn't. I struggled with that. And I'm like, oops, I didn't know that. And he said, you remember that junction that veered from the main road that took us to the lane to our house? Sister goes, yes. He says, anytime we're coming back from school and we got there, my heart began to pound. I was afraid coming home. I preferred it in school. And that's why after school, I would run off and play. And our parents would search for me and they wouldn't find me. It was easier in school. I didn't have to pretend to be who I wasn't. And then he went on. He says, remember when I ran away from home at 14? I'm like, of course, none of us will ever forget that story. And then he said, at 14, I had it. I wanted it to end. I wanted to kill myself. So I ran away from home. And you remember my best friend, X? Obviously, I do. He said, yes. So I went to X's house. And then we had a chat. And he's like, I can help you. You don't need to kill yourself because your father is like this, or your father doesn't understand you. Look at me. My father doesn't as well. And I'm the son of a chief. You'd rather I behave in a particular way or I did things in a particular way, but all I want to do is sing and dance. And that's not accepted for the prince. But I'll help you, but you need to promise to keep it a secret. Of course, brother said. So later that evening, he took him to a common barber who was a friend, big brother figure in their lives. And the friend said, the barber said to them, I will help you, but you need to promise me you keep it a secret. You see, we go through a lot of struggles in life, but there are things to help us. And sometimes these things, adults tell us they are bad. They may not necessarily be bad, said the barber to the brother. So that evening, this brother at 14 got introduced to Indian hemp. And so his journey on hemp began. So he could contain the very tough, challenging nature of his father. And so he said, you remember when I came home and dad tried to beat me for running away? I'm like, yes. He said, yeah. And you remember I challenged him? That was it. That was what gave me the power to fight back. Sister pauses and she says, I'm sorry. I didn't know you went through this, all in the same home. It's like, yes, all in the same home. So let me draw your attention back to the story of diversity and the definition of diversity again, because the earlier definition I gave you were the things that we could see. But I want us to pause for a moment, everybody on this call, and think and scan through your life. And to do this, I indulge you to come along and do this with me. But sit still for a while. You can close your eyes if you want to, have your feet positioned firmly on the floor. And just scan through your life for any time through your life up until now where you felt unseen, unheard, or not valued. Think for a moment what was happening at that time and who it was that you were with that made you feel unseen, unheard, and undervalued. What was it that they said or didn't say that made you feel unseen, unheard, and not valued? And I want you to take a minute to recognize the emotions that are coming back to you as you relive this experience. And hit the chat box and share with me what it is that you're feeling. So what is it that you felt anytime that you felt unseen? What emotions did you feel? Unseen, unheard, and not valued. See the message coming through and I'll read those two. The other panelists as well. Someone says anger. This one says hopelessness and sadness. Yep. I felt like a bird whose wings had been clamped, like I desperately needed to fly, but I was held back. And I didn't have a language to even express it. Anger, hurt, deep sadness, and confusion. Now, thank you for doing that with me. Take in 2 quick breaths, deep breaths, just to bring yourself out of that emotion. And then I want you to, for a moment, think of the people in your space, the people entrusted to your care. And see if in any way you're passing on the same feeling, the same experience of being unseen, unheard, and unvalued to them unknowingly. Because that's what today is about, to draw our awareness to those actions or inactions or the words we say that may make those in our space feel unseen, unheard, and unvalued. Because as much as possible after today, I need us to catch ourselves when we do that so that we can bring ourselves out of that space and begin to break the cycle and change it. Nanako, I see your hand raised. Could you please hit the chat box so that, okay, I see that. Thank you. All right. So that we break that cycle, so that from our own homes, we begin to create empowered individuals who accept the fact that we're different, but it's okay, because I was taught from home that being different doesn't mean that we cannot live together. And that's what today's message is about. So let's go back to the definition of diversity again, because what I said to you in the beginning are those things that you see about me. Obviously, the moment you see me, you can tell that I'm this brown-skinned girl, that I have this smile. I say that I have an unprofessional smile because I tend to smile so broadly. I'm learning to smile professionally. It's part of my 2025 goals, like I'll smile professionally. But those are the things you'd see. My mom used to joke and say that when I walk, she can actually tell that I'm left-handed. And I don't know what she saw, but I used to imagine that it means I probably tilted a bit to the left when I walked. And she said when I clapped in church, it was very obvious. She says, in Chi, you are being kumwe, which means your left-handedness is all, like I embody left-handedness. Those are those things that you can see. When you see me, it's obvious. You can tell that, okay, I'm vertically challenged. I'm not that short, please. I chose to be, I chose to be an average-heighted young woman. You can obviously tell I'm a woman. But there are other things that are unseen. There are these naturally recurring tendencies and responses to situations, those traits that become me and attributes. And I differentiate between traits and states because states are those skills you learn or those you become so you move on in a situation. But traits are almost like your instinctive responses to things and habits and how you do things. Those ones are often non-observable. So if I use myself as an example, you'd see the things I discussed earlier on, my height, my gender, and all of that. The one thing that you will not see immediately is that I have a nurturing heart, and it would take you relating to me for a while to know that I'm relational by nature, that I want to love from a very deep place and nurture anyone that comes into my space. It will not take you long to observe that order is important to me and that I think in blocks and process, and that until I see that, it's often hard to take action. It would take you a bit of relating to me to realize that, okay, my favorite response when you throw something unexpected at me is, it depends. Because until I am sure that I'm sure that I'm sure, it's hard for me to give a response. So for instance, if I worked with you in a space and you wanted me to contribute during meetings, knowing that it will be easier for you to send me the agenda and the things we'll discuss with any attachments ahead of time, so I go through. But I admire those who think on their feet, who can come up with creative solutions from nowhere and it makes sense. We're different. But we can be from the same womb. They can't say yefun yekwan. The womb is but a path, and different nations just come through that womb. So we're different, but we are together. So what are those non-observable traits that you see in the people in your space? Because when we begin to acknowledge that and make it easy and okay to speak about it and say, by the way, I realize when it comes to communication, you prefer to do it this way, or getting curious about what is it that makes you want to defer a conflict situation or a tough conversation to a later time, whereas I want to speak about it. That's me being curious. That's me knowing that I have observed and I see that you're different. So deep diversity speaks to our different ways of being, our personalities, and our abilities. We're different. The psychologists say that it's a clash of chromosomes and how we're nurtured to a particular stage in our life. Some say age 7, some say age 13. But it means really before we were born, by virtue of who our parents were and who their parents were and how we were nurtured, we form certain tendencies and they become almost enduring. That sometimes I do it and it will take somebody in my space to say, I have observed Doreen that, and I'm like, what I actually meant by that, that's deep diversity. And as I walk you through the journey of my childhood and my siblings, you realize what I'm talking about. So I'm saying that in our spaces today, as parents, as leaders, as big siblings, or as leaders in any way of any sphere of life, our definition for diversity, deep diversity, everything that makes you and I unique, seen and unseen. So it's not just those things that you can observe, but those that it takes a while to get used to. It takes curiosity and it takes deep love to get to see. So everything that makes your children unique, seen and unseen. Everything that makes your team, the members of your team, unique, seen and unseen is our working definition for deep diversity. So to make it practical, let me introduce you to the angels, my family as a child growing up. So the first is my dad, my mom, my older brother, myself, the sister after me, and my youngest brother. Now I've used the 4 primary colors just to, in a very simplistic form, to represent the 4 archetypes that most personality type indicator assessments would use as the base for the various descriptors that they would have for different ways of being. And you can tell immediately from looking at the dynamics playing out in the representation, the differences in the family. So without going too much into what all of these represents, just let's agree that each color represents a different enduring trait in the individual. So you see immediately that all of us have all colors inside us. That's a fact. However, how we choose to use them or which of them become our preference based on that clash of chromosomes and how we were nurtured is presented in the image below for my family. So you see that the first image, my father, he led with the commanding red attribute. By nature, he loved to have his way. He was a leader at birth. He spoke flawlessly and fluently. You had to love him. He didn't need to fight for anything leadership. It almost was given to him. Then my mom, she led with a consensuous blue energy, and it was followed by her empowering green. Notice for a moment that the empowering green energy is my father's lowest attribute or trait. But notice how it's second for my mom. And notice how for my father, the commanding red, which is his primary, is my mother's lowest energy source. And imagine for a moment the dynamics that played out between these two who had come together to start a family. My mom would love to see when things didn't go right with anyone, especially for the man she loved. If it was the first time, she let it slide. She would want to see that it wasn't intentional, it wasn't deliberate, it was just one of those things. She would wait for a second happening and then a third happening, sometimes 24 months later. And then she says, you know, 2 years ago you said, and my father wants to talk about things when and where they happen, nothing will slide. Before long, my mom began to wonder. So I take in all of this so we have a comfortable home. How hard is it for you to keep quiet over one thing just for a moment? My father is wondering, why do I need to keep quiet when we can talk about it? And so without their consciousness that they were actually different, but it was okay that we could talk about it and stretch towards helping each other understand from where we're coming from, the rift started. And I don't know how many of you on the call have experienced older women say to you, you know, by the time I got to a certain stage, I had stopped loving the person. Why did you stay, you ask? They're like, our generation was not like your generation, you know? But by the time their children are teenagers, they can tell the differences. And because they themselves have not been taught to navigate those differences, it becomes tough for them as well. So we relive a same cycle in ourselves, our children, and it continues. Today's call or today's session is a call for us to take a pause and break that cycle. So take my older brother for a moment and see that he leads with empowering green energy. Relationships for him is critical. So paired with a father who had to be obeyed and whose even basic admonishment came across as castigating, he struggled. My mom's love for order, for a creative son, but because for her, she led from a place of relationship, and because she reached out to that nurturing nature or people nature in him, they connected, but he struggled with the father's approach. So he tells me that when he was 30, he walked to my father and he said, "Why did you hate me so much as a child?" And he said, "Hey, hate you? How can I hate my own son? I didn't hate you. I was trying to toughen you, to man you up." And he says, "Wow, well, you tried too much because you broke me in the process." And I need you to think back now at your son, who is not showing exclamation, inverted commas begin and close, who is not manning up, because for them, emotions, expressing their emotions or showing how they feel is important to them. And the words that we have said to them in the process. Now take me, I lead with the consensuous blue energy, process, order. The sister after me, like my father, leads with commanding red. Now take a look at my youngest brother. He leads with commanding red, but he combines that with my mother's consensuous blue. It makes him 100% tax-oriented, and to get to know him as a person, feelings, you have to be deeply close to his heart. And I'll take a look at this family and begin to imagine the dynamics that played in there. And so today I'm calling our attention to our family as well, to take a look, for all of us to take a look at the dynamics, and our teams to take a look and say, okay, I have observed that. Because here's one thing that we need to remember. To the worm in the garden egg, the whole world is white. To the worm in the mango, the whole world is yellow. So the worm in the mango comes and says, what a beautiful yellow world it is. And the worm in the garden egg says, what world are you looking at? The world is white. And both of them are right. That one leads from a place of imaginative, inspirational, spontaneity, driven approach, and one leads from a deliberate, disciplined, down-to-earth approach, doesn't mean they cannot live in peace. They can learn to live in that diversity. But it starts from the home, because then if we don't teach that, then accepting themselves is a hard place to start from. And when I think about the dynamics that played out in my home growing up, I'm reminded of this verse in the Bible. It's one of my favorite verses, but it says, by wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. By knowledge, the rooms are filled with precious and pleasant riches. Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. We're different. We're attracted to something different, but understanding and knowledge helps us not break the people in the process. I speak about these things because then I'm of the strong opinion that if we begin to talk about it and help people understand themselves, then these statistics will be different or will change, and we can start in our own spaces. That more than half of women do not think they are liked by others, that more than half of young people worry about what other people think of them. A third of young people don't feel they are generally liked by others. And then we wonder why Gallup says that 70% of employees are not engaged. And then we hear stories of young people killing themselves. And then we hear stories of spouses who live together but are strangers to each other. Because one is the worm in the mango and the other the worm in the garden egg. And we see the world differently, but we do not stop for a dialogue on why we're different and how we can make it work in spite of. My friends, my belief is that if we make that effort to start the communication from today, a number of things will happen in our homes. We will grow self-acceptance. It's to say, okay, I understand myself, and I understand that for me to achieve this particular feat, I need to do X, Y, Z. But for another person, it's okay. They want to fly off the cliff spontaneously. I use myself and my daughter as a very interesting example. My daughter is high spontaneous. There's bungee jumping at Crewe. She wants to go and experience it. I wonder who built it? How strong is it? What if it comes down? You know, but she's from my womb and I raised her. So it's me coming to that acceptance that we're different, but in spite of it, this is how we can live together and make it work. So she accepts that about herself, and if she finds herself in a situation where others are not like that, she can understand that because in her home, that diversity was appreciated and spoken about, it's okay for others to see things differently. And that because her mother may not necessarily see things like that, to have a conversation with her mother, she probably would say, by the way, that thing has been checked by this authority and it's been stress tested, to give her mom that assurance and confidence that she knows that for her mom, these things are important and she's paid attention to them. That's self-regulation. And once you are accept yourself and you're able to regulate yourself for the people in your space, you breed understanding of others. And you're not expecting that everybody, every worm, irrespective of what food they are living in, should see the world as yellow, because the worm in the mango saw the world as yellow. It makes managing conflict very easy because you're coming from a place of curiosity and of love. Recently, my son called my daughter and I's attention to something. He said, I know that for you and mommy's personality, daddy often comes off as castigating, even when he's having a very simple chat. Trust me, he doesn't mean it. And you need to be able to live above that to understand who he is. Then the other bit of the coin would be for my husband to understand that for his daughter and his wife, on top of your voice means that their ears may probably not hear you. And so stretch out to meet them halfway. That's self-regulation. That's subordination of interest so that a relationship can build, so that a culture where people thrive is manifest in the home. And then if we do that, we begin to reduce that innocent insensitivity where we pass comments like, oh dear, well, as for you, what will it take for you to man up? That's not how women behave. No, you find a woman who owns her space and wants to speak up when things happen. And she's married to a man who thrives on the relationship and will hold back on having a conversation because for him, it will affect the peace that they are probably experiencing in their home. If we do these, then our emotional intelligence quotient increases. And you know what they say about that in leadership in the workplace and the benefits of leadership in the family and workplace. So where do we start given all of these benefits? Like I said, today is about consciousness. The account say that what that means is the thought of the impending ghost that is scary. I mean, when the ghost is right before you, it may not be as scary as when you were thinking about it's coming, ooh, you know that sound? But it's there. In coaching parlance, we say that uncertainty breeds fear. With awareness comes clarity. So if I know my spouse's responses and I know my wife's responses or my husband's responses, I know my children's responses, I am aware. And so it doesn't catch me off guard for me to also react in a way that I haven't thought through before acting, but I can anticipate and actually call their awareness or attention to it, and then we can have a conversation around it. So that fear is removed. And once that awareness, that consciousness that the Rastafarians talk about a lot, once that consciousness is brought to bear, then there's clarity in our space. So just a few tips from my experience, and please feel free to add your own tips to it from your experience, so that together we can grow and make our spaces better. The first tip from me to you, start with yourself. Self-knowledge. How do you like to communicate? What motivates you? What are your habits and tendencies, your strengths, your area of not so giftedness, your emotions, how you tend to lead, habits? Let's start with you. Thankfully, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are countless tools out there to help you. Often, every leadership course that you attend at work starts with something like that. I'm saying, let's bring it home. So let's start with you on the call. Once you start with yourself, encourage the people in your space as well to get into the habit of knowing themselves. Because it starts with you, but it doesn't end with you. Now, that's one thing I learned at work as well in one of the diversity and inclusion programs, says that we should promote a culture of add instead of fit. The fact that the children came through your womb doesn't mean they will all behave like you or have to behave like you to succeed in life. And they don't have to all behave like their father to succeed in life. So promoting a culture of add is, okay, I see you and I see the difference. How do we make what you have work for you? Instead of fit, well, under my roof, this is how we do things. And I'm not talking about values of what's important to the family. I'm talking about our natural responses, our tendencies, how we behave, because we're very different. And one of the coaches I met recently, she talks about it. She said she's Zulu, I think, I hope I'm right. But she says that in her culture, when they meet, they greet with Sawubona. I see you and all that you are. I see your hopes, your fears, and your aspirations. Can you imagine promoting that in our homes with our children and saying, I see you, I see your struggles, I see your aspirations. Let's talk how I can help you make it work. Now, anytime we talk about listening and encouraging feedback, a story comes to my mind. One of my former colleagues in one of the places I worked is an Arsenal fan. God bless his soul. So is my husband. I won't say a lot about it. But he said that he was busy watching a match when his daughter comes to him to share a conversation. And he was nodding and telling his daughter, yes, I can hear you, I'm listening. And the daughter says, no, Daddy, I want you to listen with your eyes. I'm calling all of us on this call to a different kind of listening, where sometimes you ask nothing, you just observe. And your response after that observation, or your feedback after that observation, is not, why do you always? It's more of curiosity from a place of love to say, I have observed that when it comes to this is how you often do it. What makes you want to do it like this? From a place of love and curiosity. Listen and encourage feedback. Feedback because when, again, back to the worm in the garden egg, the whole world is white. And until somebody gives you feedback from how they have received your reaction or tendencies to a particular situation, sometimes you don't even know the effect it's having on them. And because it's such a huge area, another tip is, let's start from somewhere. There are different areas. There's communication, how you communicate, how your children communicate, how your spouses communicate. There's conflict management, which also is often borders on communication. There's what drives me. There's my strengths, my weaknesses, emotions, how I express them, how I tend to lead, my desire for order, and there are a number of areas, but let's start from somewhere. Not starting at all, it's where we'll have an issue. But let's begin to observe, and from a deep place of love and curiosity, ask questions. And finally, my last tip is everyone's journey. It's not the kids alone who need to understand that their mom and dad are like this or like that, but the parents also to say to their kids that, you know, mommy is also growing in this area. And so, yes, I will make mistakes. Can you imagine what that does for the child? I recently listened to a man who is on a mission to minimize suicide in teenage boys. And that was after his son took his life. And from the letter the son left to him, he realized that the son was struggling with failure in school. And when he introspected, it dawned on him that his son had never watched him fail or seen him fail. He hid those parts of him. When his business didn't do well or any aspects of, he didn't do well in any aspect of life, he never spoke about it. It was always the good. So to the child, how does he feel when he's a son to this almost perfect human being? And so when the boy finally took his life and the father read the note he left behind, the father's taking it upon himself to share with parents, the kids need to understand the journey. Let's commit to it. Let's tell them that all of us are learning on this journey of self-awareness and self-knowledge, and that we'll get it wrong sometimes, but that is okay. Because when we get it wrong, we'll come back and say, what I thought when I was doing this was X. From your reaction, that's not how you received it. Can we have a conversation around it? Imagine what that would do to the children. So these are my tips for the people on the call. These are tips I'm still living. I'm learning and growing by them daily. And I know that you can add yours when we end this and we hit the chat box of things that have worked for you as well in your journey as a parent or a leader, so that together we can begin to encourage diversity, deep diversity, seen and unseen in the people in our spaces, so that we can grow together and break that cycle of I'm not accepted in my home. Why should anyone else accept me? So I'm going to pause here and ask for questions, feedback, and how we do that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen in a moment so that I can see you raise your hand and all of that. But when you do, I will unmute you to either speak or you can hit Q&A and put your questions in there. I'll go to the chat box. Before I stop sharing my screen, though, I want to share my email so that if for any of the things we've spoken about today, you want to have a conversation or seek support to make it work in your space, you can reach out. Just drop me an email on acts@branchoutafrica.com. It's acts@branchoutafrica.com. Thank you again so much for coming on this call with me for us to discuss how we can lead deep diversity in our homes. So let's have a quick conversation because we have some time. And I'm just going to hit the chat box and look at the Q&A for that as well. And I see the feedback coming through. This one says, listen with your eyes. I like that. Yeah, I love that too. Listen with your eyes. Thank you. I see the feedback coming through of your appreciation. Thank you. I have observed that. Yes, it's coming from a place of non-judgment, from a place of curiosity. You know, listen with my eyes. This one, okay, thank you. I see that. Thank you so much. Now, if you want to ask any question, feedback, want to make a contribution, there are ways you can do that. You either hit the chat the Q&A box with it, or you can just raise your hand and ask the question, or just contribute feedback. We have just a few more minutes to do that. I promise this was going to be a 1-hour session because remember, it's my big day. I have to pause and go and have some wine. But thank you so much for sharing the day with me. I see all of you on the call, my friends from all the places. Amma, I see you, I'm grateful. Doris, I see you, thank you. Asabia, thank you. Asabia has been with me. If it's Asabia from Stanbic, then it's Asabia has been with me on every YWL session. Asantua, my sister from another mother, I see you, thank you. But indeed, my mother was Ma Jane as well. And I know, thank you for sharing your mother with me. Cassandra, thank you. So Cassandra, I see you conversation. I see you and all that you are. I have observed that. I know where you are right now, and I know this is very important for you. Christina, thank you. Debbie, thank you. Deborah has been on every YWL conversation. Kolali, thank you. I see all of you. Doris, Drowa, my daughter Ife, my coach as well, Ife, thank you. Yeah, Asabia, thank you as well. Emilia, thank you. Emilia was on almost every session last year. Thank you. Esther is speaking to us on Wednesday. Yeah, on Wednesday. Esther, thank you for being on this call with me as well. Eunice, thank you and congratulations on the birth of your baby. Very good time to be having this conversation. I can guarantee that this baby will experience a whole new kind of motherhood. Thank you for being on this call, Eunice. Fuad, my boyfriend for life. Thank you, Fuad. I can't wait for your session on Saturday. Thank you. Fuad's father was my boyfriend as well. Yeah, you won't understand, but it's very real. One says, I see you and thank you. Frimpoma, bless you for being on this call as well. Gerald, thank you. Marian, love you. Mwah, 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 thank you. Catherine says you have a lot of boyfriends. Yes, so I am gifted like that. Nanako says, how do you identify different personalities of your team members? Nanako, the simplest way is to use any of the tools, psychometric tools out there, to work with somebody, a licensed psychometrician. And on this call, I can see a number of them. Myself, I'm licensed to use 2. What I like about the psychometrics is what it does. It gives you a language to even express yourself. I remember when I first went through I'm like, this is what I was trying to say, So an easy way is to do that. A longer way is observation and conversations over a period of time. But an easier, quicker way is a language, is the psychometric that just gives all of you a journey of where you currently are, and then you can pick it up from there. Thank you so much for that question, Anapo. Okay. Emilia, you're here with Emmanuel and Dela. Thank you. Those are like a favorite couple of mine. Thank you, Emmanuel. They sent me a video this morning with their kids singing and dancing for me. I'm like, thank you. Deborah, thank you. Let's pause and break the cycle. So it's 5 minutes for us for 1 hour for us to have been here together for an hour. I don't see any other questions in the chat box and the Q&A. I've answered the one I see there. So I'm going to just give 1 more minute for anybody who has a question, feedback, or suggestion and hasn't shared. And then we'll call today a wrap and we'll wait for tomorrow. Please, if you haven't registered for Stefan's session, you have to. He's my mentor, a coach, and a friend. He'll be dialing in from SA, South Africa. He has an amazing story and a journey that you cannot afford to miss. So please register by close of day today, because then the registration closes at midnight today, so that the tickets, the links can be sent out and all of that. So thank you all so very much for sharing your afternoon with me. I don't take it for granted that you honor me like this. I am so grateful. I love you all so much. Thank you for loving me in all my imperfections on this journey. Thank you so much. And I'll see you on tomorrow's call. And by all means, please drop an email if you have a follow-up conversation that you'd want us to have. But thank you again so much. Thank you.